Hey guys, just finished watching The Flash, Season 5, Episode 4, News Flash. What an interesting episode. Now, it feels like, at first I was going into this episode, I thought it was going to be somewhat of a filler episode just by, looking like, oh, they're going to have excess going after Barry and stuff, going after the Flash, and it seems like an interesting idea and stuff, but I think this episode, the way they did it, was really cool. I mean, they put the Cicada storyline a bit on the back burner, and then they had this other storyline coming into it. Now, I'm not sure how I really feel about this whole, having this character, who, Spencer Young, and, she was dealing with setting up, that she has meta tech. So that's what they're setting up here. So first off, we have in this episode, we see that Iris can't cook and stuff in the beginning and stuff. That was quite funny with that, playing a lot with the relationships between Iris and Nora and stuff. And I really like the way they're kind of playing with that. That's really going to be cool to see that. We see that there's a CCPD baseball game, and we see that Nora kind of blacks out and kind of stops, and she stops the bomb type thing. And there's all kinds of, we find out later on that Spencer Young is kind of controlling, people via the tech and stuff, her meta tech, and I think that's going to be cool to see as to kind of what what does that mean for the rest of the season. There are other meta techs are going to be happening throughout the season. Hopefully it all kind of comes together to the Cicada storyline, because I'd hate to have episodes where, oh, now there's meta tech out there, so now regular people are going to be, have to stop people, and they're going to be a bunch of filler episodes with people that, just have meta tech type thing, and then if they don't they don't come all together, then it's just kind of useless. Where if we go to last season, they did it in an interesting way where they still had filler episodes introducing random metahumans and stuff, but yet they were all connected at the end to, they're all part of DeVoe's plan. So I think that was really cool. It was all kind of one storyline, even though they were technically, you could see them as filler episodes, right? So I think that would be an interesting idea to see as to, if we do get a bunch of somewhat filler episodes, but at the end of the day they're all tied up together. Maybe someone has a car that's been attacked, that's been changed, and it does something. Someone has guns that do different things. And all kinds of different inanimate objects that have become meta objects, and I think that could be an interesting idea. And then later on at the end of the season, Cicada could collect them all and turn them into one giant thing or something, and use them all against the Flash team and stuff. So I think that's going to be cool to see as to where things go with all that. We see that Ralph kind of finds piece of he starts to look into the mask of Cicada and finds a piece of it at the crime scene where they got attacked and stuff, and they lost their powers. We see that Cicada, and then they later on go to the plant and they find out that too many people wear that mask to be able to pinpoint who wears that mask. It's just a commonly used mask for dozens of plants, right? It's a really high tech mask and stuff. So, but Cicada ends up seeing that they're there, sees Ralph as as Elongated Man in Sherlock, which is interesting. I wonder why Ralph was dressed up, as to get information as Elongated Man, yet Sherlock was just walking around as Sherlock. It just seems a bit weird. And when people recognize him as Wells, the original Wells, who was started the particle accelerator and built everything and blew up everything, seeing a different version of it, it just seems a bit weird that they'd bring him out. And it would have made more sense if Elongated Man had just gone in alone and Sherlock had just waited in the car type thing. And he just explained, well, you can't come in here, you look like a Wells, and that would just mess so many people up type thing. Because if I'm not mistaken, at least if we go back to the pilot, Wells seemed to be more like a Steve Jobs, a really huge philanthropist that's all over the world, that people would recognize his picture type thing. So it's just kind of weird that he would just walk around like that and no one's asking the questions. Now, last season's other versions of Wells, he had the image stabilizer that kind of changed his face, so everyone else would see one thing and everyone there would see that one stuff, and they explain that away. Whereas this one, they don't explain that. Now, do they just give one to every Wells that comes around and he looks like a different person every time just to change it up? Who knows? It's just something that I think would have been something they need to just kind of keep thinking about and remind us about where things are going to go with that. So we find out that future Iris ends up putting a power dampener chip in Nora, and I think that was interesting, dealing with that whole storyline. And she ends up later on, confessing, telling Nora that whatever my decision was, I agree with myself. It's my future self, and even Barry later on says that, and that's where we kind of get the divide of the breaking up of the family between Nora and Barry and Iris. Barry stands by Iris no matter what. He's like, I trust her decision on past, future, present version of her, all versions of Iris. I trust her decision so much, and I think that's going to be cool to see as to go into where things go with that. And then if we get to the end of the episode, we see Cicada kind of he gets home and he's feeling sick. He has lung problems, and we saw that Sherlock filmed that, and he figured that one out using when he dived deep into the masks theory and stuff, and he found out that he's injured and stuff. And we see him at the end of the episode kind of crushing he's injured, but he's getting powers. He's getting crushed. He's crushing the pipe in his house type thing, which hopefully that bar wasn't holding up, wasn't a complete construction weight-bearing bar, I guess, not in his house, but we see him doing that, and he opens up his shirt. We've seen that cut there, and we see it before there. It's not the first time we've seen that, but, could that be anything to do? Because to me, I find it's a coincidence that it's kind of the same way as Nora's scar. Now, Nora has a little bit of a scar, but hers is going down, whereas his is going across, so it probably could be a different thing, but it's in the same general location, around the same area. So I find that kind of interesting to see that. So I can't wait to see as to kind of where things go with that. If there's any connections to there, I might be reaching a bit to seeing that if there's any connection between his cut and her scar. But it maybe has something to do with powers related. Maybe that's the ideal place to put a power dampener. Maybe had one in there, and it came out. Who knows? It could be something interesting to see. But I definitely can't wait to see a bit more into the whole idea as to why a future version of Iris puts in the power dampener. And she talks about it, Nora does, but it seems like she doesn't really know exactly why. She just put it in there just to control her. But why did she want to control her? There seems to be a reason to it, so I think it's going to be interesting to see as to where things go with that. Maybe if we ever do go to the future with XS, to see as to where... and how, what is the reasoning behind that? Is she just terrified? Did Iris do that in the future because she, at that point, that version of Iris had lost Barry, loses Barry in the crisis in 2024, and then when her daughter was old enough, she didn't want her to become power, so she was afraid that she'd go down the hero path and ultimately disappear again too. So I think, it's going to be interesting to see as to where things kind of go with that. I don't know if we're going to get to that, since that we've always been building up to that. We've never gone to the 2024. We've always just kind of, waiting to get there. I guess that's one of those things where they're waiting to get to 2024, waiting for 10 years of the Flash before we even get there, which I think would be awesome, is if they never went to 2024, and hopefully this show actually makes it to 10 years, and we actually just wait to get there. I think that would be a really awesome thing to do, especially if it was set up so early on like that, and ultimately is to get to that. That event could be quite cool, as to seeing to where things go. Hopefully, and if they ever, the CW was ever like, oh, here's the last season, which The Flash, pretty sure it's their top show on the network right now, so they don't think they're ever going to close that down. But if they were, it would be then jump forward and do the 2024 storyline. But I think it'd be something to leave, like if they're writing that slowly, leave that script in a drawer somewhere for when we actually get there, so that we get there gradually. I think that could be a really cool thing to kind of build up to that. But I think there's a bit more of a issue, a bit more behind that, as to why future Iris does that. But I think the idea, the money that I put my money on, is the idea that, she lost Barry due to him having powers, being a hero in the crisis, and feeling like he had to save everyone. Whereas if Iris were able to take that away from Nora and not let her become a hero, then, she would be less likely to run into danger, run into dangerous situations type thing, and where she could always lose Nora. And I think every time she would ever go out to doing something like that, she'd always be terrified that it'd be the last time she'd ever see that. So I think that's going to be an interesting idea to maybe play with that, to see as to where things are going to go with that. And obviously with Nora kind of going to move in with Joe and stuff, I think that's really going to be an interesting idea, is to see what is his perspective on the situation. What does he think? And I think it'd be interesting to see as to where things go with that. And also it'd be cool to know has Nora grown up with Joe? Is he alive in her future? I mean, obviously 2049 seems a bit he's probably not still alive in 2049, because that'd just be way too far in the future for him. But I think the idea, how does she know when Joe dies? You know, what time, when does he die? Did he die when she was young? Did he die when she was like 15 or something? Who knows, you know? Or maybe the technology could keep him alive in 2049. Who knows? We have to wait and see as to where things go with that, to see how their relationship is going to be. It would be kind of cool to dive into all that, especially because he might be able to relate to your version of, or at least Cecile might be able to relate to a version of, well, he's both of them. They're both police officers, into a version, well, she's a DA actually, but to a version of what future Iris would be feeling about being worried about every time she goes to fight someone, goes into danger, that, you know, something bad's going to happen. So I think it could be interesting, same idea, you know, as a, which since he's in the same kind of dangerous line of work as a police officer. So I think that could be something cool to play with. We see that Iris ends up stopping XS from killing the Flash, you know, shooting her with a dart and stuff, and they find out that the satellite created Metatech, and I think that's really going to be cool to see as to where things go with all that. So, and then the trailer for the next week's episode, which is not next week, we have a week off for the Flash, and then we get the next episode, episode 5, is titled, what is it titled here? Titled, All Dolled Up. And if I'm not mistaken here, that's where we're going to see, Peter McKell as Ragdoll. Peter McKell, aka Ragdoll, who will be played by the contortionist Troy James. Now, if you don't know who Troy James is, he was a contestant on America's Got Talent, and he's completely, triple jointed and all that stuff. So I think that's really going to be fun to see him as the character Ragdoll, who's actually a character from the 1942, if I'm not mistaken, is when he first appeared. And I think that's really going to be cool to see, to see him doing this stuff, and now it's actually him doing this character. So I think that's really going to be quite interesting to see. It's really cool that they do that and they're able to get a character like that. And because he wears a mask and whatever, this guy doesn't need to know how to act because he has a unique skills. I think it's really cool that they're doing that rather than, using CGI, special effects, whatever. That would all work on if you're doing a, $100, $250 million budget movie, and you can make, you can CGI him, you could do different things. But having him just actually do it, it's all practical effects. It's all going to be this guy. I think that's really going to be cool to see how that works on screen and what it's going to be like. And hopefully they can bring him back a few more times, because I think that's going to be quite cool to see him doing things like that. And I think he'd be a cool character to have him bounce between all the shows. Well, I guess he'd probably be able to go over to Arrow and stuff, but it would, he wouldn't be able to jump through Earth type thing to go to Supergirl or anything like that. But I think he could be an interesting character to play with, and I like how they're doing that, going with someone who could actually do the effects right thing, more practical than anything else. So it's going to be fun to see him there. So let me know what you think, guys, about this in the comments below, about this episode of The Flash, Season 5, Episode 4, News Flash, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I'm Captain America, here to talk to you about one of the most valuable traits a soldier or student can have.
Subscribing.
Sometimes subscribing is the key to victory. Sometimes it leads to very little, and it seems like it's not worth it. And you wonder why you waited so long for something so disappointing. How many more of these?
You're still here.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, guys. Peace.
It's over.